You're listening to Podcast PXN, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo. Let's do this. What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 11 of Podcast PXN. I am one of your hosts, Daniel Prindle, aka Dan is DTM on Twitter, and I am joined by the pride of PlayStation, Sean Babiak. Sean, you're a son of a gun.
I'm adopted. You can't say that. I don't know why you always have to bring up my adoption every time.
I never said anything about that.
It's very offensive to me.
Thank you to everyone in the live chat for coming out to the show. Just as a reminder, we are live each and every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube. Just search Podcast PXN and you will find us on there. The show always starts with the PXN news of the week, so let's go ahead and jump right into the show. So first up on the PXN news of the week, we have Probably Monsters. This isn't like some weird thing.
We might probably have monsters.
Yeah, no. Probably Monsters is a new studio sort of / publisher founded by former longtime Bungie executive Harold Ryan. So I thought this was kind of interesting. It's kind of a new breed of video game company, as they put it. That's their words. It's kind of a mesh between a game developer builder, essentially, and a publisher. So essentially what they're doing is they're bringing in a bunch of talent from around the video game industry and kind of forming teams of new developers to make AAA games, and basically helping them out with finding publishers and stuff like that. So they don't actually publish the games for these new developers that they're creating, but they are basically forming the studios and then helping them get to the point where they can get their games in the eyes of the publishers. So it's
essentially
kind of
a middleman for marketing in a way. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's kind of interesting. I thought it was interesting because I've never heard anything like this before in the game industry. So it's kind of a new field almost that they're going into. I'm not sure how successful it will be, and I'm not sure if they get ownership of the studios. I would think that they would get a certain percentage of each studio that they help create. And then that's maybe how they get
either
funding.
That or royalties off the game that they help get into essentially a service.
Yeah.
Would be a good guess too, because a lot of people understand. There was actually a news report that came out this week about the child actor who played Simba in the original animated movie, that he was offered $2 million or $100,000 with royalties. Mm-hmm. Obviously, $2 million in the 90s was a lot of money, but he turned that down for royalties, and he's made way more than that because it's a smarter move in the end.
Yeah, for sure. So I just thought this was kind of interesting news to try to throw that in there to kind of start us out. Next up, Ms. Marvel was announced as a playable character in Square's Avengers game. So actually, Crystal Dynamics developed Avengers game, and apparently the story's going to evolve over many years.
So first, that is a pretty big thing that Ms. Marvel is the character that was announced, because that has been a huge push recently, is not only diversity amongst Marvel heroes, but not the same Marvel heroes that keep getting thrown to us.
Yeah.
Ms. Marvel actually just appeared in Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the Black Order. She was a playable character in that.
She's getting a movie, right?
She's getting a TV series on Disney+. This is going to be, in my mind, probably pretty big. Now, we haven't seen gameplay of it. We just know about the release from New York Comic Con this week. With Kamala Khan joining the Marvel team. And if everybody doesn't know any of the backstory of Ms. Marvel, she's a huge Marvel fan.
Yeah.
That's why they call her Ms. Marvel, because she knows everything about the superheroes, was obsessed with them, and she is one herself. Almost a little bit in the vein of Mr. Fantastic, but different powers and abilities and stuff like that. I think it'll blend really well for a action game. I'm still very lukewarm on the Avengers itself. Like you were mentioning in the second part of the story, it also got told to reporters that they're kind of comparing the initial launch in May 15th of next year that it's going to be, think of a Tomb Raider size game.
Right.
Which
makes sense because they made Tomb Raider.
Exactly. That's the experience you're getting first off. And then they are planning on developing a story over years of content, which you actually made a good point before we were talking before the podcast of that's both cool that they're supporting it, but as we know, support can be a double-edged sword because of games like Anthem. There was a giant plan for Anthem that has all been scrapped due to the non-success it encountered.
Right.
I'm still all for... I don't see why this has to be a constantly ever-evolving game, in my opinion. I would love just a kind of experience of an action game with the Avengers characters. I could be wrong. I mean, this could turn out to be awesome. Yeah. I wasn't particularly high on the graphical element of it. I mean, Thor's hair looked really like PS3 era.
I just don't like the art style on some of them. They just seem off to me, and maybe that's just my MCU brain, seeing Chris Hemsworth and seeing Chris Pratt, or not Chris Pratt, shoot, the other Chris, Chris Evans.
Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth,
And seeing them as their characters, and then seeing them, and it's just they're the same character, but they're a little bit different, visually, so it's very confusing.
In the comics, actually, the character that is being portrayed in Crystal Dynamics character is a lot more faithful to the looks of Captain America than Chris Evans is.
Yeah,
it's hard to translate that stuff from a comic to a movie. You can't find the exact looking person.
Yeah.
So I think it's really cool though that we got a character, a essential main star, because that's the 6th playable character that's been announced. Still no Hawkeye, which I always find funny.
Yeah.
But that's a 6th character. They're diving now into recent Marvel history, so that gives me hope for ever expanding characters.
Black Panther.
I'm actually really hoping
Doctor Strange
and Captain Marvel. I actually really like Captain Marvel. Not particularly the movie. I did enjoy it, but I mean just the character itself.
And really, I don't feel like they'd have to do that much to get Captain Marvel working. They'd just use Iron Man as a base, very similar.
Well, and Disney's obviously not... I don't want to say they're a publisher or developer or anything like that, but they're a sponsor of this game because they gave their blessing to develop this, and now Disney has that Fox deal. So possibly an X-Men coming into the fray. That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Because we kind of got shortchanged on the Marvel vs. Capcom game earlier this generation. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this gives me hope then that they're going to dive into their essential Marvel wheelhouse and pull some things out that we might not be expecting. This was a character I was not expecting.
I agree.
I honestly expected if there was going to be anybody else that was announced, it would have been Black Panther.
Yeah.
Just due to popularity.
Yeah. I agree. So this is super exciting news, and I'm kind of interested to see if they end up announcing any other playable characters, or if this is going to kind of be it before they do more characters.
The sad part is that the playable character I would love is actually a villain, but they've already showed that he's the villain of that first mission. That's Taskmaster.
Ah, yeah.
Taskmaster is... That's why I wasn't particularly happy that he's confirmed for the Scarlet Witch movie. It's not Scarlet Witch, Black Widow. Sorry. But he's confirmed as the enemy for Black Widow, and it's Taskmaster, a lot of people think of him on pace with being with Deadpool.
Right.
Type thing. So, yeah, we'll see what happens in May.
Yeah.
Maybe more characters will be announced between now and then.
Yep. Some recent news, Doom Eternal, I believe this was yesterday that this came through, that Doom Eternal has been delayed until March. So it was originally supposed to come out in November, right? And they pushed it back a few months, back to March. I guess they were citing just trying to get things ready to go for launch. And actually, they did say a couple of things aren't even going to be there at launch. I think multiplayer is one of the things that is maybe not going to be there at launch.
I thought it was a mode of... I'm looking at it right now.
It might have been, but there's certain aspects that they're pushing back even further than March. But the game itself has been pushed back to March. In a totality perspective, this is a good thing because you want the game to be as polished and as good as it can be. So I'm all for this, and I think you are as well.
Especially given this fall's investments that I have right now in my mind.
We have plenty of stuff to play. There's Modern Warfare, there's Outer Worlds, which I'm extremely excited for.
I still have to buy Zelda. Luigi comes out in a couple of weeks. We're both excited for the Star Wars game.
Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah, it's gonna turn into a quick fall that you don't realize. Oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed with games.
Oh yeah.
So going off of that, the mode was called Invasion Mode, where you get to be a playable demon in another character's game.
In their campaign.
Yes. Yeah. So that's actually going to be something that's delayed afterwards. They also said that this has now formally been announced for Nintendo Switch 2.
Yeah.
And the third thing, which I think is actually really cool because I recommended you playing this, is now Doom 64 is going to be a pre-order bonus for Doom Eternal.
The only disappointing thing I will say from that is that invasion mode, in my opinion, sounds cooler than the multiplayer mode that's coming with Doom Eternal. I would rather them prioritize that invasion mode and do that first and then have multiplayer come after, because most people are going to be playing the Doom Eternal campaign right away, so you're going to play that campaign right in the first part, and if you don't have that invasion mode, then you're not really going to have any incentive to go back.
For Doom 2016, the multiplayer was a very weak element of that game.
Right.
That was not something that anybody looked at, but everyone loved that single player.
Right.
I really liked it. I only made it halfway through, but I liked it so much, I gave Doom VR that chance, or VFR, and that's actually one of my favorite VR experiences is that game, just for how stressed I was playing it.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I know a lot of people are probably a little upset about this, or maybe more than just a little, but delays don't necessarily always mean bad.
No.
I mean, Naughty Dog has not had a game that's not been delayed in I don't know how long.
That's true.
The last 3 Uncharteds were delayed, and Last of Us.
Yeah.
And those are considered the
Was
tippy
Last
top
of
of
Us
games.
2 delayed?
Last of Us 2 was never given a launch date.
Right. That was the thing.
Yeah.
They learned their lesson a little bit on that.
So, and obviously it was delayed because they tested it. A lot of people were not responding to the ending well, so they changed it and made the ending that they did.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy that they're trying to break a Bethesda mold right now that's going on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crap that, rightfully so, Bethesda has been taking for the last year.
Yeah.
I think due to their hubris and I guess maybe their earnest action to investors, launching these games that aren't all the way complete. I don't think Fallout anymore gets the pass of, well, there's always been glitches in the games. People are starting to give that up.
Yeah.
They don't want that stuff. And Bethesda's taken a huge hit publicly for everything that happened with Fallout 76.
Yeah. And glitches, to be clear, glitches wasn't the only problem with Fallout 76, but yes.
So I don't know. I'm actually more hopeful that I will actually get to this in March.
Yeah.
Downfall for me is Final Fantasy VII. Comes out in March.
Luckily, I don't have to
I was going to say, at this moment, you don't have anything, but who knows? Spring is the new fall at this point.
True, and you never know what else gets delayed.
Yep.
So, next up we have, so this week there was some new news about Valve's 30% cut that they were getting hate for. So, essentially, Valve takes 30% of any profits that a game makes on their store on Steam. And there was new news that actually came out that showed that Xbox Store and PlayStation Store and even like physical retailers like Amazon, Best Buy, GameStop, etc., all of them have the same 30% cut that they take essentially from the game's profits. So this wasn't a big surprise to me at all, just because you would think that that's like a standardized thing. I think a lot of people kind of got up in arms about the whole Epic Games Store thing, but the thing is, Epic Games Store only takes 12% cut. So if you're a developer and you make a PC exclusive and you release on Epic Games Store only, you're going to make 18% more than you would make on Steam. So like, you have to think about what developers think about. That's 18% more money in their pocket for every game purchased. And also, Epic, in a lot of cases, has been paying developers to bring their games first on Epic Games Store in order to get their store more popularized. They're trying to compete with Steam. So my problem is when people basically my problem is when people complain about games not coming to Steam and then they come around and say, why are you releasing on Epic Game Store? Well, this is why it's coming on Epic Game Store. If Valve wants to compete with Epic Game Store, not necessarily with Microsoft and Sony and physical retailers, but if they want to compete with Epic Game Store, they've got to lower that amount, in my opinion. Like, you can't just look at it and say, hey, Microsoft and Sony are charging that same amount of cut or whatever, because they're not really competing directly. Steam is not really competing with them necessarily because they're on a different platform.
But you also have to look at it, in my opinion, too, from a business side of things. So whenever somebody comes in new on the market, they always try to undercut the big dog. And there's a lot of times a reason why the big dog is taking that cut for a reason. That's the way you maintain sustainability and profit. I can see that Epic is preparing in their mind to take a loss due to these percentages, get the store built up, and then go right to that model, but not announce anything.
Yes, I agree to a certain extent, but at the same time, if they're being transparent about the numbers, then I don't think that's really a matter.
Well, everyone can be transparent up to a point. When they start changing things and they see successes or failures, being that they don't necessarily have to be beholden to us, even though we're the customers, and I totally get that. They're not beholden to us to make sure that they're making less profit or that type of stuff.
Right.
Now, I do agree with you why developers will want to go to Epic Games at this point, or any other developer that would offer more money on your profits as opposed to the other platforms.
Yeah.
But there will be almost a give and take symbiotic relationship with that, because there's reasons why certain stores do that type of thing.
Right.
And this is no ill will to either Valve or Epic Games, or even PlayStation or Xbox. No. Anyway, I totally understand the business side. Yeah. My only thing is, now that we kind of know these numbers, these are public knowledge, I would really hope then developers are kind of banding together and then, cool, this is how much you're taking off of us for our profits, then help us with the curation. Yeah. Because I feel like that is the biggest loss in translation when you go to a PlayStation store or Xbox store. I've only been on Steam a few times in my life, but it just feels cluttered. You don't know, essentially, it doesn't make a good job of showing you what you would like how you get suggestions when you're on Spotify of other artists you like, or movies. I feel like the games industry is lacking that a bit, where curation would be a huge thing, or advertising the big new releases and not just 200 games come out on Steam a day, it feels like. Yeah. Something like that to kind of broaden us out.
And I feel like the all digital future kind of will help with that, because part of that, I think, is a console can't necessarily know everything you own, because you have some physical games, you have some digital games, you may not necessarily play them all, you may have some still sealed up. So if you buy a digital game, they always know you own that game. So you can say he's playing this game, he likes X, Y, and Z, and make recommendations based off of that. So I feel like at some point,
maybe next gen will recognize that, though, your hard copies. Yeah, Amazon a couple years ago allowed you so you could create a wish list, and you could actually have the option of saying, I already own that, and that would then base your suggestions.
Oh, Amazon's stuff is creepy. You'll be on a website and it's you may have been looking at this, come back and look at it. It's okay, nope, I'm good. So I just that's kind of interesting on that front. But next, we are going to jump into some Xbox news. So Mike Ybarra, who is kind of one of the head honchos, he's number 3 with Xbox. He is leaving Microsoft after 20 years with the company, but he is teasing that he's staying in games. So he's basically taking another position within the game industry. So the interesting thing about this is, last week we were talking about, actually the topic of the show, Sean Layden leaving Sony. And the interesting thing, I think, is the timing of this is too coincidental for it to not be tied into that. So I think that possibly Sean Layden and Mike Ybarra are going to join Google's Stadia team, Stadia, whatever it is.
Stadia.
Yeah. And they're going to basically form that core leadership for Stadia and I guess make decisions for the future of Google's gaming platform. So that's just my prediction. I don't know what else there would be out there that you would want to leave like Microsoft or Sony for. To me, there's not anyone bigger than Google.
Some people, though, also have almost an addiction to rising in companies, and once they reach that tip top, they want to kind of start back over and do that. Or they could also just be like, I was in charge of a huge conglomerate. I just want to take a step back and focus on what I really got into games for.
It's possible,
Yeah.
but
I don't believe they're going to Google, personally.
You don't?
No.
See,
there's no indication that they are. If I were Google, I would be touting that off everywhere.
Yeah, but there could be contract stipulations, like they may have to wait so much time before they can do that since they're a competing company. You never know with that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I just think that's all conjecture. I don't see anything that's showing that they are.
We'll see.
I think it's coincidence that they both left.
We'll see, but the thing is what you were saying about leadership at the highest level not wanting to necessarily stay there and like start over. Usually that happens within like the development side. So like a high-end developer, like maybe the head of a studio leaves to make a smaller studio, indie developer or something. It usually doesn't happen with the top tier of like the publishing staff. That usually doesn't happen. That's
I would agree on that. Like I said, I just hesitate to say it's Stadia related.
What do you think it's going to be then? Because Mike Ybarra clearly said he's staying in the game industry.
I honestly have no thoughts on either one of them. Okay. Mostly because I think it is not a worthwhile investment to believe in Stadia at this point in time. It could be in the future, and I know we've kind of mentioned this before on the show, but I'm not even going to go off of infrastructure in the United States itself.
Yeah.
I'm going to go off the simple fact of, one, where's the advertisement for? I know it's an online thing, but you are touted that you can play it on your TV.
Yeah.
So where's the advertisement? Because it should have started now. They've already sold out of one of the Founders Pack.
Edition, yeah.
Which doesn't bode well because given how many pre-orders I think were registered, was not that high of a pre-order amount.
Oh, yeah. They definitely put a super low number just to sell out.
So that does not give me hopes that this is going to be a strong buy-in. Now, everyone said if anyone's going to succeed in this market, it's going to be Google. Yeah. I just don't know if they're going to succeed how they believe they will. Yeah. I just don't believe in this foray in gaming right now.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but that doesn't necessarily mean that these guys aren't going there. Just because, like,
but
we
we've
don't
heard
think it's a
nothing.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. This is totally conjecture.
Yeah. And I will agree, at least so far, there has not been any fanfare from either Xbox or PlayStation about these two high-ups leaving.
Right. Yeah. Well,
it is very weird.
Phil Spencer did tweet something out about Mike Ybarra and basically thanked him for everything. But yes, you're right. There hasn't been any like crazy thing. So I think we might get that news by the end of the month. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Dinner bet?
Well,
it's a Skyline bet. You heard it.
Steak dinner.
Steak dinner.
Next, we've got some.
You want to die?
We've got some reviews. Concrete Genie got some reviews, and Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
So I'll go a bit with Concrete Genie. So this is a PlayStation exclusive that does have PSVR capabilities, and that's kind of what piqued my interest because I was looking for something in the fall with PSVR.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I'm still loving Beat Saber when I get to it, but I just wanted something else, kind of like Moss was to me last year.
Filler. Was that mouse game?
Yeah, it was actually a lot of fun.
Gotcha.
Very interesting puzzles, but it's getting in the mid-7s as far as Concrete Genie on Metacritic right now. A lot of it seems very easy. A lot of people are praising the art itself, not the art style, but the art. So, like, basically, you're this kid named Ash. You're walking around this deserted town that's been, like, plagued by basically gentrification, more or less, from the outside suburbia. And you're trying to bring life back to this place through your drawings, through this magical brush. and it looks interesting in that fact. A lot of what turned me off is everyone saying the ease and like you just want to spend like time like painting the buildings and stuff like that. And that gave me a lot of vibes for a Little Big Planet creator mode, which I spent like 0 time in. I just wanted to play stuff. I'm not one of those people that likes to create inside games. I always like that games were created for me to just enjoy and play.
Yeah.
That's why I've never been high on Dreams or any of that stuff.
Dreams.
They did say it kind of switches genres though, midway through, to almost an action game with the brush becoming like a weapon type thing. So, but it looked like very simple mechanics, like button mashy type stuff, not like in-depth action combat or any of that. So it looks like something interesting to check out. I don't know if it's something that I'm going to be putting any money into at this point.
Right.
PlayStation made a huge flag in the pole this month with having MLB The Show and Last of Us 2 first-party studio games. Mm-hmm. So it's possible I could see this in the future being a PS Plus game.
Yep.
So for me right now, it kind of seems where I'm leaning towards, but it did seem pretty interesting for it.
Cool. And then Ghost Recon Breakpoint, I feel like that has not gone as well as Ubisoft had imagined. And
no.
The crazy part is Wildlands didn't come out that long ago. It was like 2017 that Wildlands came out, I believe.
It was the number one game,
right.
Almost, I think, until Call of Duty.
Yeah, which is crazy to me that Wildlands was so successful and they didn't just build off of that more so instead of building a brand new game less than 2 years later. And I think that was a shock because they announced it almost a year after Wildlands came out, Breakpoint. And Breakpoint has released to some very low scores. It's in the low 60s on Metacritic right now. And I want to say that Wildlands was in like the 80s, low 80s maybe. And it just seems like the heart of that series isn't there for Breakpoint. And
well, they're trying to be a jack of all trades, master of none,
right.
from everything that I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Like it has, I guess there's a system in Ubisoft Tom Clancy games where it's like RPG mechanics to like do raids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the raids aren't even available, but they keep telling you about them, and like even Destiny doesn't do that.
Right.
And stuff, and it's trying to mesh all these genres in one instead of being its own thing, like pseudo open world but not open world.
Yeah.
Supposedly the story, which most Tom Clancy games, the story is forgettable. Don't get me wrong, except for in my probably opinion, Splinter Cell. I couldn't tell you the story,
right?
But I remember
Splinter
liking
Cell.
the story,
yes.
how it developed.
Yep.
So I don't know. This was never a game I was hyped on. This
Yeah.
wasn't on either one of ours radar as far as
Nope.
games we were anticipated for.
Nope.
It's sad that it didn't work out well, especially given the success of Division 2 earlier this year,
Yeah.
and Rainbow Six's continued.
You do know what this means, right? Ubisoft, you need to drop all freaking ties to Ghost Recon and make a new Splinter Cell. That's what we want.
I would agree. The downfall is the sales. The sales probably tell all. So
you know what? I don't care. I'll buy 30 copies.
30 copies. You heard it.
Yeah, you heard it. So that's it for the news. So we'll jump into the games we are playing. I'm still playing Destiny 2 Shadowkeep. I don't really have a whole lot to say about that. I've only played a couple more story missions. I've been still kind of grinding on Borderlands, trying to get through some of those side missions and stuff like that, leveling up. So Destiny 2 Shadowkeep, still same thing, really good, still enjoying it. I don't know if it's going to hold my attention just because there's so many games coming out, and I feel like Outer Worlds is going to take a ton of my time when that comes out.
Is that 2 weeks?
It's the end of October, so I think it's like October 28th or something like that. But it's definitely going to take a lot of my time up. And then also... Is it 2 weeks?
25th.
25th, gotcha.
So yeah, pretty much 2 weeks from now.
Gotcha. The other game that I am playing is not a new game, but It is Halo Reach on Master Chief Collection. I got accepted into last weekend's beta testing for the MCC Insider is what it's called. It's early testing for new stuff coming to Master Chief Collection, and this is Halo Reach. Halo Reach plays really good on Xbox One. The exciting thing for me is, like, they're treating this like any other game that they ported to Master Chief Collection. So it's getting up-res visuals, 4K, 60 frames per second that they're supporting. The game plays really good. I had a blast with Halo Reach. The only complaints I had about Halo Reach back in the day were armor lock, which Bungie admittedly says a million times they wish they would have never made armor lock. And yes, unfortunately it's still there, but and also bloom. So bloom is something Bungie created for Halo Reach, where you shoot your gun and it continuously expands your reticule as you shoot your gun. So the DMR, for instance, becomes less accurate the faster you shoot it, the more you shoot it. It gets annoying because no other Halo game has bloom. And it's very frustrating to try to project where your bullets are going to go. But the good thing is 343 is transitioning a lot of the settings that Bungie created at the end of Halo Reach's lifespan that had like competitive settings that basically turns bloom off, turns certain things off like sprint, and really makes Halo Reach an even more enjoyable experience. And I'm excited to go back to Forge World. Best Forge map.
Totally.
Yeah, shut up. Shut up, Sean. All right, go ahead.
So, similar to you, I have a couple, like, just samey game experiences, but I actually turned my Switch on this week and dove into the eShop and downloaded a bunch of demos for games that I've been wanting to check out, see what I like. So I got 4 on here that I both like and don't like and hate.
Oh.
So I will do first. Let me do the like. So the first one is Ori and the Blind Forest.
Oh yeah,
which we know it's not a new game, but this was an Xbox exclusive game from 2015 or 2016.
2015.
2015.
And let me interrupt you 1 second because
Shocker.
I saw this the other day. Apparently, Ori and the Blind Forest runs better on Switch than it does on Xbox One.
It was very smooth.
Yeah.
That art style fits the Switch very well.
Yeah.
So you get to kind of do like the first essentially mission, I guess you could kind of call it, or the first task, like before you go up to the tree. I actually really enjoyed it. I am planning on purchasing it on the Switch. I really want to support this partnership with Xbox and Nintendo. Yeah. I mean, even though I have Cuphead on my Xbox and Ori on my Xbox, I never really played Ori. I got it for Christmas. But I played the hell out of Cuphead, but I played it even more the hell out of when I got it on the Switch.
Yep.
So I really want this partnership to continue.
I agree.
So I think that's the best way is to support this, show Nintendo, hey, keep this type of thing up. So I am looking forward to purchasing that game, especially because it's a definitive edition. So any of the DLC, which I don't know what all was added to it,
yeah.
But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. New Game Plus, I think they added. I'm not sure what else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next one is a hate, or sorry, not like. This is a not like. This is Daemon Ex Machina. So this is a Japanese mech game, similar to maybe Zone of the Enders, but not as good in my opinion. One, it didn't look that fresh on the Switch. Now, I will preface with this with saying I played all these on handheld mode. I generally play my Switch mostly exclusively on handheld, except for Breath of the Wild and Mario Odyssey. I did play those primarily actually on my TV screen. But it controlled very wobbly almost. Like it didn't feel right. Like I remember playing Zone of the Enders on the PS2, and probably I'm like so many others. I played it because it had a Metal Gear Solid 2 demo, and everyone was super excited to finally get a reach on that. But I actually liked Zone of the Enders, and Daemon and Machina does not look like something I'm going to continue or invest in. I didn't find it to be that fun of experience. It seemed a little too much like a 2004 game for right now.
Yep.
Now to go on to my absolute hate. And this actually is a very disappointing one for me.
Yeah.
Contra Rogue Ops.
Ooh.
Rogue Core, sorry. This one, it's getting eviscerated in reviews. And every reviewer is almost in their right to do this. I grew up on Contra. I love the Contra games. The original Konami code, that's from Contra games. Contra 2 and 3 are probably two my favorites of the series. The first one I actually played in arcades, and it is so disappointing to see this is where the series is now. It is a pseudo top-down. It's almost trying to copy what Housemarque has done when it comes to like Dead Nation or Alien Nation. It's trying to copy it, but not copy it well. It looks awful. Like, I'm not even joking when I say it looks awful.
Art style or graphic?
Graphic and art style. It just looks straight up PS2 era. Straight up. Like, not abashedly. The aiming does not feel right. The jumping doesn't feel right. The fact that if they would have went with a 2D Contra, it would have sold gangbusters in my mind comparison-wise.
Right.
Like, this is going to tank hard.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people said this when it got announced at E3 this year, too, that this does not look good. Yeah. It did not at all change anyone's mind now that it's come out. I appreciate the fact that they gave me a demo, because that means you don't have to waste your money.
Yep.
But the fact is that it is not a good game.
The thing I don't get about that is, like, listen to your fans. What do they want?
Yeah.
Don't just make whatever you want. Like freaking Bethesda did with Fallout.
Yep.
You just made Fallout 76. No one wanted that.
Yeah, no one asked for a game where you're with people when it's a game for being alone.
Right.
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense. The last one is actually one that I never checked out, but I've been wanting to. I'm still not for sure how I feel about it, and I told you this earlier. The Necromancer game that's the Zelda version of it. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it's the Zelda version of that. So they actually give you a decent amount to play with as far as like the time. Like you get basically a miniature portion of the map, but like everything that you were able to do in the game, you're able to do there.
No, that's cool. Is it time locked? Or?
No. And also, this and Ori does a really cool thing, and I think Daemon X Machina as well, where if you decide to purchase the game online, boom, your save just auto slides in, which is a really cool feature that game developers started doing for all this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to get the timing right on these, and I know I heard a lot of people when this came out that that's probably the most jarring thing for you is that you're so used to this top-down Zelda and you have to now do this timing and movements. Yeah. It is really cool, and it's really awesome to hear this music remixed as the Zelda themed musics and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't get comfortable, and I played for about an hour.
Yep.
So I know there's no tutorials, and obviously I'm normally a guy that likes that with my love of FromSoft games, but I just wish there was, I guess, maybe a little bit more hand-holding when it comes to a completely new mechanic that I'm unfamiliar with.
Yep.
But it's definitely something that I'm going to keep my eye on when it comes to sales. If it's something that drops down, which unfortunately since it's published by Nintendo, probably not. Mm-hmm. But I do like that all four of these games I got the chance to actually give a try. Yeah. I really miss the days that a lot of games came with demos. I think it's just a smart move to get your audience, see if they like it, see if they don't. I get it, sometimes it can backfire, but Ori sold me just on their 10-minute demo. I immediately I have to get this game.
Yep.
So we'll see. Shout out to next week. I know we're about to go into our topic of the show, but Killer Queen Black, which is a highly anticipated Nintendo Switch game that was a very popular esport arcade game, comes out Friday. Daniel and I are actually going to be playing that hopefully this weekend, but we're very much looking forward to giving our impressions of that next week.
Looks interesting. It does. You actually showed me. I was like, I have no idea what this is, but it looks neat.
Yeah.
So we'll jump into the topic of the show. Our topic of the show this week is next gen and how it's shaping up to be. So basically, we got confirmation yesterday or the day before that PlayStation 5 is officially a thing.
Thank God they called it 5.
Yeah.
I'm so happy they did
Honestly,
that.
I feel like they should have called it PlayStation 1. I mean, you know.
We're going to talk about all this stuff.
Yeah.
we're just going to get to that out of the way because I'm not going to mention it anymore.
Yeah.
The only thing I want of a new Xbox is just a better name. That's all.
Yeah.
Just don't call it the Xbox 2 or...
Yeah.
Honestly, just call it the Xbox. I'll be okay with that.
You do realize that there's no chance of that?
I know.
Xbox 360, where did that come from? Xbox One, where did that come from?
Sony's the only one that makes it make sense.
The next one's just going to be called Xbox Infinity just because, you know? So... Some of the news this week has been that PS5 is going to have ray tracing hardware. So basically the GPU is going to support ray tracing, which also Xbox already announced that theirs is going to support ray tracing as well. I'm sure it'll be very similar GPU hardware, just like this generation. Obviously, PS4 was a little bit more powerful this generation, but obviously... In a totality perspective, it kind of came out in the end because Xbox One X is a little more powerful than PS4 Pro. So it's kind of...
PS4 is basically more powerful than PS4 Pro.
Well,
whereas Xbox, and this is going to sound bad the way I'm going to say it, Xbox took a man's dump to make Xbox X.
Right.
PlayStation just took like a rat pellet poop for PS4 Pro.
Very true. Yep. So, and they're also both going to be based on the Navi technology, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. Ryzen line and GPU based on Navi family. And then they're obviously both having SSDs in it. That hasn't changed. The interesting thing that I thought that was cool that they talked about was the new DualShock controller. They talked about some new thumbsticks that the developers can actually make certain tension and develop for that. So, like, if you're walking in sand or something, that would feel different than walking in, like, water or ground or whatever.
Which would be really cool for some of those adventure games that they have.
Be very cool. However, how many developers are going to utilize this? Because...
Gorilla.
That's the problem because the technology in the Xbox One controller is super, super cool for developers to utilize, but no one uses it. The rumble triggers, basically, Microsoft put a rumble trigger in the left and right triggers so that you would get force feedback when shooting your guns and stuff like that, and you can adjust the tension based on how much you're pressing down the trigger, so it would give you less feedback or more feedback depending on what you're doing. The games that did this phenomenally was Forza, which is an in-house developer, and Halo, which is another in-house developer. And really no one else took advantage of the hardware, and that's kind of my thing, is how many people are actually going to use this. It sounds freaking super cool and awesome, but to me, if not enough developers support it,
you could say the same
pointless.
thing with like when the PS Vita came out.
Yeah.
That really the only team that utilized that back touch screen was Media Molecule with Tearaway.
Yeah.
How they did that very interestingly, like as far as like raising things up and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I would agree. I mean, I'm not so much interested in what they put in the controller that developers will lose. I'm more interested in what they left out. I was very surprised that HD Rumble did not catch on as far as from the Nintendo Switch side.
What exactly is HD Rumble?
HD Rumble, so you feel it's not the tension. You can actually like feel the rumble and the extent of that, if that makes sense. It's like, so the perfect example is actually 1-2 Switch, which I demoed in the store, where there's the marble game,
right?
And you actually feel the individual marbles dropping in your hand.
I got you. Yes.
And you actually feel
saying,
how many are supposed to be in there because they're supposed to be guessing.
Yes, I got what you're saying.
Now, not a lot of games, though, still use that.
The other thing is that's a lot more difficult to do in like a traditional controller because you're not holding it like you would a Switch controller.
That's very
that type
But I
of
figured
game.
they would try to figure out some way to make everything's about immersion these days when it comes to games. How do you feel more a part of the experience?
Right.
I mean, that's the whole crux of PSVR or any VR is we want you in the game type thing.
Which is why I think that whole new control stick with different environments like changes is super cool.
Yeah.
It's just I just question how many developers are going to use it.
Well, like you said, it's probably going to be a first-party thing as far as utilization. I can really see Gorilla taking advantage of that in their terrain when the inevitable Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is announced. because we all know that's gotta be their next game. That's not even conjecture. That's literally has to be. That's better selling than any of their Killzone games.
Yes.
So there's no way they're going to abandon that franchise.
The other thing that Mark Cerny talked about was essentially the SSD would not only improve the load times, but also traditional games on optical media right now, when it has to install to a older hard drive that's a slower read speed, it's a disk that it has to read from. The way developers do that nowadays, they write to that disk multiple times the same data over and over, like instead of reusing the same data, because it's easier for the pin to just hit that data in a different slot instead of going all the way around, rotating all the way around to get back to that data again. So they waste a lot of space by doing that. So next gen is supposed to kind of alleviate that with SSDs, because the developers can just put that data in there one time, and SSDs are super quick because it just instantly gets that data. And this sounds awesome as well. But the only thing is, my question is, are the consoles only going to have 1 terabyte hard drives again? Is that going to be a thing? Because SSDs are significantly more expensive than a traditional hard drive. So my concern is they only put 1 terabyte hard drives in, and then either don't support external hard drives or only require SSD external hard drives, which would get mighty expensive. For instance, right now, I have an 8 terabyte hard drive, external hard drive plugged into my Xbox One right now that is 70% full. If they go and make next gen where you have 1 terabyte hard drive and you can't use like a traditional like 7200 RPM hard drive, you're screwed. I'm screwed because you can't spend $500 on a 3 terabyte SSD and expect to do that for a console that costs $500.
I don't know if it'll be out of the box. We know eventually, no matter what, that support will come down.
Yeah.
It just depends on the model. I really wish I had a right way to lean for you. Because terabyte right now seems like the minimum your console needs.
Yes.
I upgraded my PS4 when I got it to the terabyte hard drive.
Yeah.
I actually bought the terabyte hard drive for the Xbox when I bought that. So it seems almost like a guarantee that that's the minimum you need. I would prefer 2, but what gets me honestly the most scared is right now we're at the end of our console generation.
Yes.
Red Dead was 2 disc. Final Fantasy, we're assuming that they've already announced multiple discs.
Right.
Cyberpunk,
Yeah, that's gonna be.
that's got to be on
yeah,
multiple discs. With just looking at that, how it is, that means then that these games are going to be at least 200, maybe 300 plus gigs. That's one game.
Now, what he's saying could save data
True.
if they do it that way. But my concern with that also is if they do say that you can use a traditional hard drive and they do this new technology where they're only implementing the data one time, that means you're essentially slowing down your load times for old hard drives. So if you're playing a game on an older hard drive, like a normal hard drive, 7200 RPM, you're going to get slower load times than like Xbox One and PS4 because of what they were just describing.
I'm holding most judgment with everything until their respective conferences. Because we all know that they're going... I guess I shouldn't say we all know, but we're all assuming that come 2020, they're both going to have a preview event of some sort. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I could even see Xbox maybe having a pre-show, in a sense, with XO event in London at the end of this year.
Yeah, they could reveal something at London. Yeah.
So I could very much see it. My main thing is it's more or less is what they're doing with momentum each console has had. Now, I don't think we're going to see Xbox close the gap as much as PlayStation closed the gap last generation. I think they already kind of know that. I mean, they won't even announce hardware numbers at this point as far as it. So, but we all know, too, that there's a lot more hype surrounding Xbox these days than there was.
Their first-party studios.
Yes. Well, not just first-party, but Xbox in general. There's so much love of Game Pass. I've never heard anyone talk negatively about it. I've only heard this is the future. type talk. So there's already things that everyone's praising Xbox for. So I'm just curious how each one's going to carry it, because they both can't go into this cocky thinking that they're going to just get us. Because in my mind, correct me if I'm wrong, but I foresee both consoles launching at a $500 price point.
I agree. At this point, yes. From what we've heard and what we have information-wise, yes, I think they will be both 500. If one of them's 400, that would be insane.
That would that would be the PlayStation 4 killer, like how it just did Xbox this. But I really foresee both of them starting at that $499 price,
especially with how much SSDs cost.
Exactly,
they aren't cheap. So.
And we know that everything drives down later once technology even advances. The cheaper model becomes. But I just don't see how you essentially tell all of us, hey, you're going to spend $1,000 for both consoles, but they right now have a lot of similar guts.
Yeah.
It's all about what services and what are you providing me with software.
Yep.
And that's where I think the messaging is going to definitely have to stick from both sides on games, which I think they've both learned their lessons.
Yep.
I'd just be very curious how actually Nintendo fits into this fold too. So we know you actually made a hell of a good prediction before this show that so Sony has confirmed that this is 2020 holiday.
Yep.
Xbox has already confirmed theirs is holiday 2020.
Yep.
Nintendo Switch is only 2.5 years old, going on its third birthday here in March.
They need something.
Yeah, they need something. So Daniel predicted very wisely, in my opinion, that Breath of the Wild 2 is going to release this holiday. Next holiday for it. And that would probably be the smartest move of the company that they can do.
Yep.
The attach rate from a Switch and Zelda, now not nearly as high as it once was when it first launched. It's still extremely high.
Yeah. At one point, it was higher than the console.
Yeah, because the Wii U. Then people bought the collector's edition and the digital edition.
Yeah.
So I very much foresee that. I think it will be almost a tough selling point where they're going to have to lean more into the handheld side too, because these games, whatever we're about to see, granted, we're never going to have a leap from 2D to 3D again, or from SD to HD. We're never going to have something that dynamic again, but they're still going to be like, oh my God, what am I watching?
Yeah.
I mean, when you see at your Xbox event the cinematic and then switch right into gameplay of Halo Infinite, you're going to be like, holy crap, this is next gen.
Yeah. Please give me that.
Or like when they do Horizon Zero Dawn, when they just show Aloy and all the robot Aloy, whatever. Sorry, my friend Chris named his cat Alloy after the character. But you see just the scenery and all the Dinobots and all that stuff coming up from it. You're gonna be like, oh my God, I thought this game looked great before. Now it's like, oh. And then you have just Nintendo going on their art direction, which, don't get me wrong, is really cool what they do with their art direction.
Yeah.
But is it enough of a selling point to ever be in the fold with these two beasts?
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting three-way battle, I think, next fall for sure. So,
because I think Nintendo has now shown that they're no longer the little brother. They're the brother that tags along. They're no longer the little brother, though.
Oh, yeah.
Because a lot of people have either a PlayStation or Xbox and then a Switch.
Yeah.
A
lot of people,
yes. Most don't have all three.
Yeah.
Now, we like to both say that we're kind of agnostic. We just want to play whatever games we like.
Yep.
So
we have all three.
Yes. It just happens to be you gravitate towards more Xbox games, and I gravitate towards more Japanese PlayStation.
And some people still have their Xbox backed up and don't even play it ever. But let's not talk about that. Hey,
I at least have it.
That's it for the games or the topic of the show. Why did I say games we're playing? That's it for the topic of the show. So we're going to do our top 5 real quick. Top 5 active developers for this week. So this is developers still in business. My first one, not a surprise to anyone, 343 Industries. I love Halo, obviously.
Zynga. I thought that's what you were going with.
Zynga?
Yeah, Zynga Games. Oh, my bad.
Come on. Obviously, I love Halo. 343 has done a phenomenal job. Halo 5 was not very good campaign-wise, but multiplayer was great. Halo 4's campaign was great. So I'm really excited for Infinite. It really feels like it's a spiritual reboot of the series, and it really feels like they're hitting on all the points of what makes Halo great. So I'm very excited.
My first one is From Software, which is not a surprise to this podcast, our listeners, or anybody that knows me. I obviously lean very heavily towards Japanese games, and these games combine both my favorite as far as Japanese RPG mixed with tough as nails combat. I really like all that they have produced, the Dark Souls series, Bloodborne. I restarted Sekiro. I didn't mention that because I only spent like 2 hours on it. I forgot they also made Armored Core. I like that. There was another game actually I saw on here that they did. Oh, Tenchu, which is what Sekiro is based off of, is the Tenchu games. And I loved the Wrath of the Ninja, I think that was called. And I always liked those types of games. And From Software always knocks it out of the park with their story within the story type games.
Yep, they like to make people cry. Next up, I have Naughty Dog. So Naughty Dog, I really don't feel like I even need to say anything here. Naughty Dog is just a freaking phenomenal developer. They are literally the reason I bought a PS3. Uncharted 2, my favorite game ever on PS3. That game was amazing. Uncharted 3 as well. Uncharted 4. Last of Us. They're just such a masterclass developer.
So
They're
Crash
visual.
Bandicoots, Jak and
Yes.
Daxters were my favorite of their series.
Yeah.
I used to have this standing thing every Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
I always played Jak and Daxter, the Precursor's Legacy, the first one, and 100%ed it
Yeah.
because I love that game so much.
I mean, their games just have visually stunning graphics always. They have amazing storytelling. They have great gameplay. So all of those things combined for just a fantastic developer.
And they're not afraid to reinvent themselves either.
Nope.
I'll actually use Jak and Daxter again. The first one was such a platformer, and the second one was a GTA clone.
Yeah.
The third one was an open world, like, I think Max Payne, or not Max Payne, sorry, what's the Road Warrior and all that stuff?
Road Warrior? I don't know.
I can't think of it. Desert Wasteland game.
Desert Wasteland.
Mel Gibson, the Road Warrior. I can't think of it now.
idea.
I can't believe that's out of my mind. That's going to bug the hell out of me.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Mel Gibson, Road Warrior?
Mad Max, Jesus.
Oh, Mad Max. Okay.
I'm so sorry
I
on
was
that.
confused.
Yeah. But no, I love how they reinvent themselves and everything.
Agreed.
My second one is Nintendo. That pretty much goes without saying, given my upbringing and what I bring to games history for my knowledge.
It's kind of cheating because it's like multiple studios, but...
It is, but that's what it is. They're both the developer and their own publisher for a lot of games.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... Not much has to be said other than they're the most recognizable characters they have from their stable. They have a plethora of different game styles that they do. They're not afraid to venture out into oddity. Most of the time, in my opinion, not for the best, but they're still not afraid to test the waters with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they've given me my favorite games of my entire life. And there's not much that can be said about that. Games that I 100% still keep playing.
For sure. My next one, I'll probably read it correctly rather than what the paper says, which it says Bethesda Studios.
Oh, I didn't realize I spelled it wrong.
So, yeah. Bethesda Game Studios, I'm talking about specifically Todd Howard's team.
Why would you only speak specifically one developer?
Because, of course, Bethesda, this is going to turn into a long thing, but basically Bethesda turned another game studio that made that 4v1 game that got canceled into Bethesda Game Studios. I think they're like Austin or something, Bethesda Game Studios Austin, and basically considered them the same. I don't consider them the same. Todd Howard's team is the masterclass team. I love their team. Fallout 4, Fallout 3, Skyrim, Oblivion, Morrowind, etc. They just make amazing games, and I'm very excited to see what they can do with Starfield. Obviously, Starfield is mainly from that team, so I'm very interested to see what they do with that, and they are definitely one of my favorites.
It's like I actually debated using Platinum Games as we talked about, but it's like the Platinum Games. We know they have an A team, and they have a C/D team.
Yes.
Same thing with Bethesda at this point now.
Yeah.
So I'm actually gonna kind of flip around one of my orders, but my next is Square Enix. I actually was thinking about just solely going with Square Soft instead of Square Enix, but I like to combine the two because they have given me my favorite RPGs of all time. Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VI,
Just Cause 4.
Chrono Trigger.
I'm just kidding.
I mean, they did do Just Cause, but
yeah,
I'm not. I don't. They weren't the developer of it.
No,
They were just the
I'm
publisher.
teasing. Yeah.
But they're not afraid to take chances on their games, such as like Bravely Default for the 3DS or Octopath Traveler, which released last year. So
even publishing wise, like Life is Strange, that's a widely loved.
Or
like,
Deus Ex.
Yeah.
They have so much history between the two companies when it comes to SquareSoft and Enix from back in the day before they merged, but they continuously pump out great RPGs. Not as consistently as I would like, being that it took 15 years or something like that for Final Fantasy 15, and
Kingdom Hearts, that wasn't that long.
yeah, it was only like 13, 14 plus years for the third one.
Yeah.
But still, they just pump out some of the most classic and revered RPGs of all time.
Yep. So, my second to last one is the great Bungie Studios. I debated pretty hard on this one, but
He was crying. He was having an existential crisis.
No. I'm literally wearing a Destiny t-shirt right now. But Bungie they've done so many things for the industry. Like what they did for Halo and for console games, they created basically the matchmaking system that traditional games have nowadays on console. They mastered the controls for an FPS.
I will always give them credit for how to put an FPS on a console.
Exactly. They basically created the infrastructure for Xbox Live. They worked like hand and foot with the Xbox Live engineers to get that working on Halo 2 on the original Xbox. They created the friends list. Before Xbox even had a friends list, Bungie made a friends list for Halo 2. That was what Xbox had. They didn't have a friends list on the actual platform. I mean, voice chat, voice messaging. They pioneered so many things. And also with Destiny, they created a brand new genre that everyone wanted to go after. Anthem, The Division, just all these.
And no one's been able to capture that magic really yet.
Yeah, and it still gets a huge audience, and they continue to support it. And the thing is, now with Activision not basically handcuffing them to Destiny, they have the freedom to continue to work on Destiny stuff, but also look with one eye to the future on what their next thing is. So I love Bungie.
Yeah.
So.
My next one is Sony Santa Monica Studios. Obviously, a lot of people know them from God of War, the entire franchise. I actually got turned on to them very early before them. One of their big games was called, it wasn't really big, it's not well known, but it's called Kinetica. It was a racing game that was very futuristic where your body was the actual vehicle. You were attached tires and you were the engine. It was a very, very cool game to play, especially like how futuristic it was and stuff. But obviously the God of War series, I loved every God of War.
Even Ascension?
Yeah, I liked Ascension. I really did. I understand the issues that people have with him as a character. And what do? They completely reinvented Kratos to make him just this amazing, in-depth character that no one saw coming.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why last year it just won everything as far as award season goes.
Well-deserved.
So, yes, well-deserved. Such an excellent story. I think Cory Balrog having kind of ownership of that studio and Sony letting them do what he wants.
Yeah, because he was gone and then they brought him back. Yeah.
So just letting him take his creative time, like we're not. And he even specifically said, like, I would have loved DLC for that game. He said, no, the game that we made is the game that we made. We'll make another one. We're gonna make it. So
with Thor,
yeah, probably with Thor. I have so much respect for that studio that I can truly see them being in that light of Naughty Dog when it comes to games and telling a story.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So my last one, this was another one I was wrestling with, but Ninja Theory. I absolutely have loved everything Ninja Theory has done. I really, really love DMC and what they did with that. I'm not a big DMC fan. In fact, DMC is from Ninja Theory is the only one I've ever played. I still have to play Devil May Cry 5 on Game Pass. I keep
Which is crazy. That's the
meaning
only
to do
one you
that.
played, not the
Yeah,
Capcom ones.
it's the only one I've played, and I really enjoyed that game. But also, what's that? Kung Fu Chaos. Yeah,
That's on the original Xbox. I love that game, dude.
I've never played it, but I thought that was hilarious.
It's such a funny game.
I thought that was hilarious when Microsoft acquired them on E3 stage, and Phil Spencer said, "Yeah, I've worked with what's his name, Kabid or something, the main studio head. He's like, I worked with him on the original Xbox with Kung Fu Chaos." And I was like, really, Phil, that's the game you choose? But I guess it is.
Tamine and Antonitis, I think.
Is that what it is?
Possibly.
Yeah, that might. Tamim, yeah. Tamim, yeah.
Yeah, Kung Fu Chaos was an amazing game on the Xbox.
Yes.
It doesn't get enough love for being a party game.
Yeah.
It was an awesome game.
I never played it, but I'm just going off your word.
You would have enjoyed it, I think.
Enslaved Odyssey of the West was one of my favorite 360 games. It very much had that Uncharted vibe, as we've talked about in this podcast before. I love that game.
Heavenly Sword, too, on the PS3.
I never played Heavenly Sword.
Very much in that vein.
Yeah.
A little bit more of a camera angle when it comes to it, but very action-heavy. A more stylized God of War, probably.
Gotcha. And Hellblade, I really enjoyed Hellblade. It was a interesting experience. It kind of messed with your mind a little bit. So,
and the research they did for that too.
And their new multiplayer game looks cool, but I haven't obviously played it.
Yeah,
it's still in early access or whatever. Yep. But yeah, that's it.
So my last one is actually I didn't look at them as a first party studio until basically recently because they just got acquired by Sony. But Insomniac Games, my love started for them on the PS1 days with Spyro the Dragon. I actually bought the Reignited trilogy. Even though I'm kind of out of those like kid games type things, I just love that series so much. I didn't get really too much in the Ratchet and Clank series, but I still respected them and liked them. Mm-hmm. I actually really liked Resistance: Fall of Man. And actually the subsequent Resistance games too. I don't think it should have ever been touted as a Halo killer. Same thing as Killzone from Guerrilla Games, but it was a very competent shooter. It actually was a lot of fun playing online because it almost was raid-esque before raids were a thing. A lot of their co-op missions and everything.
Yep.
And their foray into Xbox this generation is probably the greatest tragedy that's happened so far. The fact that we'll never get a Sunset Overdrive 2.
I wouldn't say that, because they own the rights.
Yeah, but it won't be an Insomniac Sunset Overdrive 2.
What do you mean? No, Insomniac owns the rights.
Well, Spider-Man being such a success, though.
Gotcha.
But Sunset Overdrive was such a pleasure. That's one of my first Xbox One games. I think it was actually my second one that I bought after Master Chief Collection.
Yeah.
But I was just so pleasantly surprised by that game. The movement, the control, just the freedom you had.
Great.
I couldn't tell you the story, but just the gameplay itself was so awesome.
Almost like Tony Hawk back in the day.
Yeah, without a skateboard.
Yeah.
And then they learned a lot from that to incorporate it into Spider-Man for the PS4 from last year.
So good.
Such a good game. We're only just thinking about what's going to come in the future from them.
I get a lot of crap for this, but I love that game more than any other game last year, including God of War. And I love God of War.
Yeah, see, I would put God of War and then Spider-Man for me. Yeah. But regardless, they still did a phenomenal job with that. They keep doing well. Sony just bought them basically to keep them in-house so they can keep making gains for them because that is a huge get. I know a lot of people were like, oh, man, Microsoft has Obsidian now, a great RPG maker, open world, and basically Sony came back right at him and be like, hey, you want to always talk about third-person action games, we always have the best, now we got one of the best of the bests.
See, yeah, we've talked about that before. I wish Sony would kind of go into something else because I feel like they have too many third-person action adventure games.
Which I get. My only thing is Sony, as we can tell from Disney and Marvel, is so beholden on never letting Spider-Man go that the second that they see those sales numbers from an Insomniac Spider-Man do better than any other Spider-Man game has ever done, they're keeping that developer because they want more.
That's true. So that's the end of our show, guys. Thank you guys for coming out to the live show. Remember, you guys can always join us Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're always live on YouTube. Just search Podcast PXN. You'll find us on there. Really appreciate you guys coming out. If you want to follow us, at Podcast PXN or at DanasDTM on Twitter. So appreciate that, guys, and we will see you guys next week.
Deuces.
See ya.